Is eBay relevant anymore? To anyone new to running a business, the greatest impediment to business growth isn't always the product or the means of production or advertising or the average customer's budget. It's often the costs of overhead, which for a brick and mortar shop would be the rent, taxes, labor, and monthly bills for utilities. Electricity is a big one. But what about an online direct to consumer business? The biggest cost to anything that slims the margins further, which for venues like eBay, if you're a new starting out business and don't purchase an outright storefront account, you pay a 10% fee per listing, which for a business that runs on awfully tight margins, such as gold and silver, for example, can certainly cause a bankruptcy. eBay also mandates its users utilize PayPal for transaction, which charges a like 2.9% fee to their users plus 30 cents. Uh, Add in shipping and insurance costs, and the average eBay seller can lose 20% or more right out the door on a typical sale. That's not even including the cost to acquire or manufacture the item, keep it in inventory, which many states charge taxes for holding inventory for more than a year if you are a licensed business, advertising it, and then finally paying the taxes for the income generated from selling it, both to the IRS and if you have it, state income tax, and if you have it as well, city or county income taxes. Oh man, you don't want to live in like California or New York. I know New York City has I think city has an income tax. So let's get this straight. If you bought, say, generic pre 1964 silver coins for melt value right now, by the way, I wrote this paper a little while ago, a few months ago. Silver was like 14 an ounce, so silver was melting for about 10 times face. So just keep that in mind. If you bought it for melt right now, about 10 times face, and successfully sold them for 15 times face, approximately what AppMex has them listed for, then on a $100 face value exchange or $1,500 sale price, you would lose 20% to eBay, PayPal, and insured shipping combined, bringing you down to 12 times face or $1,200. eBay reports its sellers to the IRS for tax purposes, which, depending on your income, can end up costing you more money. Whatever cost you incur while acquiring the silver coins, such as the gas cost spent on driving out to someone, say, 2 hours away with a large $100 face value collection, that gas could easily be $40 alone, given if it's a 4-hour round trip, bringing the total sale to only $1,160. Last but not least would be the negative time lost to this entire endeavor. This is a somewhat of a convoluted concept, but a rather simple one. I'll put it this way. If it takes you 4 hours round trip to drive out and back to a person selling a large unsorted collection, 3 hours to sort through it to figure out the actual value and make a fair offer, another 3 to 5 hours to sort through the coins at home or at your shop and list them on eBay one at a time, take photos, write out descriptions, work out shipping and certain terms and whatever. That's a combined total of at minimum like 10 work hours all told, bare minimum, invested in working on those coins at minimum wage. So you're working off of a $160 profit so far. At minimum wage, had you not invested your time in buying these coins, but simply working a job, you would have made $72.50 before taxes. If you work in the state of Texas, $7.25 an hour. Before taxes and expenses incurred into traveling to and from said hypothetical job. Let's call it like at least $60 after all is said and done. This lost time places another minimum incursion of $60 lost to this endeavor, because if you had simply put this time alone aside from the direct monetary investment into the coins, you could have made $60 in your pocket working just at a bare bones minimum wage job. So the purpose of this $60 loss theory is that you're comparing what gain you really have compared to simply working some burger flipping job. That's the point. Is you want to compare it to the alternatives. That's the only thing we really have in life is contrast. So you compare, you're so far at a $100 surplus to what you would have made had you simply worked a minimum wage job. That's the value in doing this comparison. So as long as you're in the positive compared to some other job or whatever other job you know you can do, there'll always be one of those or whatever. I mean, obviously, you're going to have a certain set of skills that are far superior to just burger flipping. Maybe your certain set of skills aren't at least some Liam Neeson's certain set of skills, movie quote. But anyway, yeah, in general, just go with the lowest common denominator, whatever you consider your personal lowest common denominator. It's going to be different person to person. I'm just using this as a universal example because you can't really argue with the minimum wage unless you're going to violate the law. Anyway, but it's a good comparison though, because the lost time. Time is money. If you simply hadn't put the time aside from the bare bones job, this brings the total effective sales price to about $1,100 at best, so $100 profit at best, not factoring in federal and state income taxes, regulatory burdens from precious metals licensing, personal income taxes from the city, county, whatever, and any other costs that might have been incurred, like the shipping and packing material and whatnot. That's another thing you have to think about when you actually ship it out. And then gas to driving to and from the post office or wherever it is you acquired this shipping and packing material, making your net profit a maximum of $100. Another way to measure the time invested other than that would be to take the original $160 profit figure and divide it over the 10 hours invested, and you get $16 an hour. So you're making $16 an hour. So that's more than 200% minimum wage. So that can't be too shabby. Unless you value your time at more than $16 an hour, this is a worthwhile endeavor at best. At worst, well, then it becomes less worthwhile. This all even assumes you could even find someone with a sizable collection of silver at spot at that time, and could also liquidate those same coins yourself to another buyer at full dealer retail, which both ends are quite a stretch. The truth is that most collections, if you're buying that regularly, you're selling, are at or even above retail. I've seen people wanting 20 times face for cull coins in recent times. I wrote this a few months ago, and yeah, there were people trying to get like crazy high prices for ugly coins. Utterly ridiculous. And most eBay buyers are cheapos wanting to buy at spot or below. And yeah, I've put up plenty of buy it now or best offer ads and got people offering me like, on a $1,200, $1,300 coin at the time, I was getting like $1,000 offers. It's like, no. And then you got to lose the 10% to eBay and the 3% to PayPal and then the $50 to shipping. To hell with that. I would say that based on an even 33% operating buy-sell spread, selling through eBay just isn't worth it. If you didn't lose 20% out the door or $300 on a $1,500 sale, it might be worth it. But the only solution to this would be a gross systemic change to the whole of eBay, which could easily be instigated by having sellers cut down dramatically on the volume of sales on eBay, or somehow less scams. That's one of the big reasons for the 10%. If there just weren't so many scams, then they wouldn't have so much insurance to pay for, right? Either a huge swath of eBay sellers will unite, go on a virtual strike, petitioning eBay to lower their fees, or people will naturally gravitate away from eBay over time towards better venues, which we've already seen other auction sites pop up. I think there's like Whiz Bang and many others. They just don't have the same layout, aesthetic appeal, social prevalence and whatnot. There are numerous factors for why they haven't grown as much, but social inertia plays a major factor in stilting their growth. Consider also another aspect of eBay's flaws. Their 10% standard fee is altered for those who apply for a storefront account. This fee structure acts as a bulwark to the growth of new, small businesses, much like the progressive income tax structure allows for the ultra-wealthy or the already wealthy to simply maintain their status as wealthy, whereas the nouveau riche have to struggle and fight for their way to the top since they have to pay a greater percentage of their income in taxes and fees. It's an implied form of favoritism where if you're not already in the club or wealthy enough to buy your way in, then they don't want you in. They don't want to give you a chance because you can end up being a total failure. They want to keep you down. eBay acts much like an insurance company. betting on their 10% fee exceeding the costs of every fraudulent ad screw up and other transaction problems arising. Instead of trying to proactively squash the bad sellers and fraudulent buyers, they simply raise their fees to cover the rise in stupidity on eBay, pocketing the difference. The residual anger that can easily be observed on eBay's own user forums, and I have seen, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me. I thought I was just this whiny guy. Hell no. Go on the eBay user forums. My God, people just can't stand this 10% shit because it doesn't sound like much. You get 90% of the money. I mean, even the federal government wages, I think, are bare minimum, something like 25% or whatever. It's crazy high. But still, when you're working on a really tight margin business, I mean, 10% is actually quite significant on gold. Because if you're buying, like, go with the current market. Forget this paper I wrote months ago. Current market, gold's $1,350, $1,400 an ounce. You pay somebody $1,350, try to sell it on eBay for ounce of gold from APMEX on eBay is only like $1,406, $1,420. It's something like around $1,400. You would lose 140 out the door just trying to sell competitively with eBay, just at the same price, not even necessarily at a better price. And then you got the free shipping, insured shipping on a $1,400 item. Are you joking me? It's going to be crazy expensive. And then I mean, 1,400 minus 10%, you're talking 1,260. You're not even getting what you've got in it. There's no way to be competitive on eBay. 10% is just crazy high. The residual anger and frustration that can easily be observed on eBay's own user forums shows a growing concern and anger over this. Many sellers have already left eBay over this, but clearly not enough to cause eBay to change their structure to really address this. In the short term, eBay may be an option, probably the only option, but it's very costly. The best case scenario for any entrepreneur, but that's why my channel is called The Entrepreneur's Wingman, would be if the margins were large enough to where 20% loss off the top is somehow acceptable. Otherwise, look elsewhere. In the long run, eBay must change or it will die. The status quo is unacceptable. It's just facilitating exchange is not reason enough to take 15% out of every transaction, even taking a percentage of the shipping costs, which is that really pisses me off. That it's not like shipping is cheaper for me. Well, that's not fair. That eBay takes 10% of the shipping on top of 10% of the item. So wait a minute, when I spend $50 on shipping, I'm just supposed to pull the $5 out of my pocket? I thought that the agreement of the sale was that the buyer would pay for shipping. I mean, that's why it's not free shipping in the ad. It's price plus. Oh, no. eBay takes their 10% of the shipping, so you have to bring money up front to the shipping. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. I can't stand that. Thankfully, the nature of the internet and modern society is such that despite the power of social inertia, which is great, a huge amount of people conglomerate onto a site, it's like a snowball effect. Everybody's just trapped in the snowball until somebody tries to grab a hold of a tree branch and roll their way out or something, wiggle their way out of the apple like a worm. Word of mouth and the power of social media could liberate humanity of the fees and limits imposed on us by eBay. And maybe it will be sooner than later. We can hope. Anyway, that was my paper. If you got a thing against eBay, let me know. I don't hate eBay. Like I said, they do provide certain use, certainly in the modern context. It's the idea that you can sell something to someone on the other side of the world and there's some kind of a arbitrator, mediator if something goes wrong. But I think that there's room for efficiency. There's certainly room for progress in this realm. Thanks for watching. I'd like to hear any comments, criticisms, additions. If you've got an opinion, I want to hear it. Thank you.